Hey, J-Bo Nation! Shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester. The court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What's up, everybody? Man,
hey, everyone.
I love that holiday thing that Stevie made. Is that the best, babe, or what? I mean, that is so
very
good.
pretty. It's very relaxing.
Yeah, like I don't know how he does it. He can barely make anything on camera, but he crushes it. But you know, babe, because you're always working on there. What's going on, everybody? We are super excited about this episode of Creators Who Crush. They've been on the show before, but not really as an interview. They were on for Courtroom Crawl. Todd and Jessica from The Investigators. We love this podcast. I mean, babe, what are your thoughts about The Investigators?
I mean, I've liked every single episode so far. And just Todd and Jessica are awesome people. So, plus they're both hilarious and just fun to be around. Very genuine people.
Yeah, and I don't really listen to any podcasts at all, or let alone true crime. But I've started now since I've been doing this, and I just really enjoy it. I don't know, it's the format, how they have it set up, them talking to each other in the beginning, kind of just BSing in the beginning, setting up the case, and then as they go through it, it's really good. And I'll tell you this: the latest episode, I was crying within like the first 5 minutes. So no spoiler, I won't really say more about it, but highly recommend it. It's actually. Their first case was Lori Malloy, and this is Calvin Barry, and they're both Bows because Dornette, Justice for Calvin. You guys will see her in the chat, and she's on Patreon and stuff. So we're just super excited to have them on. So without further ado, Todd and Jessica. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
How are you?
We are
Thanks
great.
for having us back.
Thanks.
I feel like that was my jazz hands.
And guys, if you'll see, Jessica, the Bengals folks are on at 8:15, so this will not go any longer than 8 o'clock because we got to be ready for football tonight. So we are not going to miss that.
Houday.
Houday and Houday apparently are looking for a third string quarterback. So watch out, folks. But we are not going to hold this any later than that. So go ahead, babe.
Well, I mean, we just want to kind of start out with talking to you individually about your backgrounds. We are really interested on how, like, the two of you mesh into this great team when you definitely are both so different individually. So, Todd, if you want to tell us a little bit about what you did for a living, first, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I was a detective for the Indiana State Police for 21 years. I didn't have to work the road very long at all. So I was in uniform for like a year and a half of my entire career. So I got very fortunate, in my opinion. Not that there's anything wrong with the uniform side of the job. I wanted to be a detective. I put in for it and got it way earlier than I ever should have. And it just worked out. So I got to be the regular shirt and tie detective, working anything from a check fraud to murder and all crimes in between to covert investigations, which is where I spent a bulk of my career. And I was undercover for a long time, and I worked wiretaps. That was kind of my specialty, and tracking down people by their cell phones and, documenting where all they were at a certain historical frame of time, all that good stuff. And then I was the whole time I was doing stand-up comedy. So like 7 years before I retired from the state police, I'd been doing stand-up comedy, and I'd gotten to a point where I was good enough that I was getting paid. So I was touring and and all this stuff on the weekends. And fortunately, I had a job at the state police where if you worked a lot, you accumulated a lot of comp time, so I could take off for these comedy trips whenever I needed and all this stuff. And then one day, a new friend I had made, who was the punter, speaking of football, was the punter for the Indianapolis Colts. And he invited me to go to a Pacers game. We're sitting in a suite, and which I'd never done before. Evidently, I didn't know you could go to an NBA game and have a table of hors d'oeuvres and all kinds of little coolers full of whatever you wanted to drink. But there he was like, "Hey, man, I'm going to retire from the NFL. Barstool Sports has offered me an opportunity there to create an affiliate here. You want to retire from cop work and come to work for me and help me get this thing off the ground?" And I was like, "Let me think about it." Yes, absolutely. and then from there we did sports radio, and it was kind of a comedy feel because it was Barstool Sports. But then when he branched off, went his own, same thing, and now it's become this huge sports juggernaut. I think I left him to go out on my own just in time because, thankfully after that, I didn't have to mess with the millions of dollars he threw at all his employees. That would have been a nightmare. Like,
who would want to deal with that?
It's hard for me enough to worry about how to spend the money I make. So, who needs millions? Anyway, COVID hit and it sucked stand-up comedy from my life. I was doing it full time and I had to really focus on podcasting. And that's when I started diving into true crime because I just kind of went back to my roots. True crime was really starting to boom. And I was like, well, I know about crime and I'm used to talking on a microphone. Maybe I can incorporate these things. And I did. And, that's where I kind of got linked up with Dennis Cooper, a buddy of mine that worked at Resonate Recordings. And he brought me on to do that first season of Undetermined. And that's where I met Jessica there in New Orleans. So, yeah, the rest is history as far as our relationship goes.
And Jessica, why don't you give us a little background of yourself?
Oi. I feel like you're all of
J-Bo Nation, yeah.
Good Lord. I feel like they've already heard all about Jessica on so many of your shows, but I'll do a quick.
Well, by the way, if you haven't seen our Women Who Rock with Jessica, you got to check it out because she just blew our minds. But go ahead, give us a condensed version because we did have a long chat.
I am an investigative journalist. Have been for more than 20 years now. So I'm old, not as old as Todd, so that's nice. I've worked in almost every part of the media that there is. And
Porn?
What?
Porn? Oh, that's not really media. Never mind. Media. Yeah, okay. I get it. Like news stuff. Got it.
Did I interrupt you, Todd?
Sorry, I have a bad habit of doing that. But by the way, let's discuss this for a second. Why do they not have porn news? I don't know. Maybe that's something we can all work on.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do.
They do. I happen to know one of my critics used to be an anchor on the Naked News because someone. I'll tell you this real quick. Someone commented on a video that me and Shannon did. It said, "She's great. The guy's got to go." So, of course, I had to click on that person's name and Google them. Turns out this person was one of the original anchors of the Naked News. So there was a show, Todd, just so you know, the Naked News, who's not a fan of me. So there you go. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
Sorry.
The guy's got to go. Shannon's great. The guy's got to go. It was a good one, too.
I say that all the time in porn, by the way. I'm like, the girl's great, the guy has to go.
Well, after my lengthy career in porn, then
People can cut this together really, really bad for you.
Really bad for me.
Raul is here. Big fanboy, loves Jessica and Todd. Thanks for being here, Raul.
Oh, wait until you start Googling us. Then you'll really like us. Porn. So, Separately, not together. So yeah, I was a general assignment reporter for most of my career, but my passion was in crime reporting and especially cold cases. And I was just telling you guys before we went on air that today is the 5-year anniversary of my first true crime podcast launch, which was Five Roses in Atlanta, covering 2 cold cases that were both 50 plus years old. Which is actually, I think I've told you this before too, is where I met Cheryl McCollum. She was on the task force for those cases that I was working. So we have a history. I was telling you, true crime world is a small world, much like the porn world. So everyone knows everyone. I'm gonna just keep bringing it back around,
right?
So anyway, yeah. So my start in deciding to go into podcasting was after listening to Shittown. It's the best podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I recommend it. I've listened to it 3 times and could listen to it again and probably pick other stuff up that I missed before. But it made me realize that was the type of storytelling I wanted to do in the crime work I was doing. So after many years of sitting in courtrooms and covering trials and interviewing prisoners and death row inmates and victims, I decided that my storytelling was going to be audio only and focus on that. And eventually I left mainstream media completely to focus on true crime podcasting. And I guess, 5 years into it, I haven't looked back. Going on my 6th year of full-time true crime podcasting. And I work for a couple of little shows, like Dateline and things like that. But
It's a tiny one.
Well,
why don't you talk about, you have another podcast out that's #1 in America on Apple of all the podcasts, Jessica. Why don't you tell the folks about that? I mean, wow.
So I have actually, this is the 3rd project that I've worked on with Dateline NBC, the OG of true crime. And I have the honor of working with Josh Mankiewicz. I've worked with Keith and Andrea on a couple of things. I've worked as a producer and writer for both seasons of Missing in America. But the newest one that just came out is a long form podcast called Mortal Sin. And that is hosted by Josh Mankiewicz. And it was crazy because it launched last Tuesday with a trailer and the first 2 episodes behind a subscription wall. Or did it launch Monday? Whichever day it launched. The next day, it was already at #1, just with the trailer being public. So that was pretty amazing. Dateline always does really well, but that was really quick even for Dateline. So it's a crazy story. It's just crazy. It's got everything. It's got sex, religion, murder. I mean, you name it.
Any porn?
If he videotapes some of that stuff, then yes, indeed. And one of my favorite lines that Josh uses in it is that he uses the guy in the story uses God as a wingman. So,
by the way, these are one of the first guests. You guys custom emojis on Kick and YouTube for the investigators, and the investigators we have on YouTube, and we have both your faces on Kick, all there.
Nice.
So,
Love
you guys are amazing. So what I'm curious, so you're doing that, and Todd, you're still doing stand-up. I know how much work you guys put into, like, how do you guys do side projects as you're putting as much work as you are into the investigators? How is that possible?
Oh, we have no lives.
Yeah.
There's Todd and Jessica.
The trick in stand-up is, thankfully, thanks to TikTok, everybody expects a comedian to do nothing but crowd work now on a stage, because that's all the comedians are posting, the Matt Rife and these guys getting famous from it. I've always done crowd work, but so I just like, I don't have time to write new jokes, so I just keep stretching the amount of crowd work I do on stage to cover the fact that I haven't written any new jokes in a year. So that's one little trick that I have. But I also have pulled back my dates. I mean, I used to travel a lot and I'm lucky to do one show or one weekend every 2 months now, just because I'm not out seeking shows because there's so much podcasting stuff to do right now.
One of these days, I'm going to sneak it into one of his shows and he's not going to know I'm there. And I'm going to see if he's starting to create content based off of our the conversations that we have.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to heckle him.
Yeah.
Boo! I'll bring in my horn. Woo. My bullhorn. Get off the stage!
I sat down like a year ago, and I started to construct an entire true crime comedy hour. I was dead set on I'm going to be the first comedian to do a whole hour on a true crime themed stories and jokes like it. And I tell you what, impossible, because like you can do. I mean, I probably can if I brought in a team, like a comedy team, we could do it. But that's the hardest writing I've ever done, and people have kind of expect me to touch on some true crime stuff. And I get a bit to work every now and then. But the problem is, and I remember when we were with Resonate Recordings, Jacob Bozart, the CEO, kept saying, he went right up to whoever runs, the show there and said, hey, can we bring him back next year and he could just do a whole like true crime comedy act and I was like, whoa. Because it would never work at CrimeCon because I would, it's too sensitive. Like, and things that work in a comedy club don't work in other venues. And CrimeCon would be one of those, right? I can push an envelope a lot harder in a comedy club than I can in an event like CrimeCon. And vice versa, they don't get all the nuances that people at CrimeCon would get. But one day, I'm going to figure it out. And when I'm going to come out and you guys are going to see that I have a whole true crime hour. That's my goal. Like 50 to 60 minutes of nothing but true crime based material. I'm slowly trying to piece it together.
I'm afraid because it's like 30 minutes of that's going to be Jessica based material.
But you think like how it's so fucking hard. Like how do you make Jeffrey Dahmer funny? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but if somebody can pull it off, they're going to always be remembered as a genius. So I'm working on it. One thing that I've been testing out is that, he's probably the most famous right now serial killer as far as if someone talks about serial killers, his name comes up at least in the top 2, if not first, right?
Yeah.
With what the recent shows and stuff. And, but I was like I was talking about on stage one night and I'm like, there is no Hall of Fame for serial killers per se, but there kind of is. We as the true crime consumers have created one because we control the narrative. We control what names come up first in conversation when we allude to certain things like serial killers. So in effect, we have put Jeffrey Dahmer into the Serial Killer Hall of Fame. And shame on us because he doesn't have the stats. His body count isn't high enough to be in there. Like if you were going to do that with certain quarterbacks, it wouldn't make any sense because they don't have the stats to support being in the Hall of Fame, let alone being the number 1 in the Hall of Fame. But here's the deal with Jeffrey Dahmer. He has a hook, right? That's why he comes out of our mouth first. He has a hook because the only genre on television that's more popular than true crime right now are food shows, cooking shows. And this guy checks both boxes, Jeffrey Dahmer. He checks the true crime box and the Food Network box.
Did you just see that?
So, am I doing that?
Where did the balloons come from?
It's not mine or Todd's. I don't know. Oh my God, I had the reactions on.
My fucking Zoom and there's some kind of setting on here.
I know what it is, Todd.
Find.
I figured it out, Todd. I'll tell you how to fix it.
Please tell me because we've been in some very high level meetings in the past month. And this shit happens nonstop.
Todd.
And like when you're pitching a very important project to a network and then balloons pop up all over the place.
I made it. I'll send it to you. Because it happened to Joe and it was happening to me. I was doing shows and thumbs down. Let's hope I fix it. All right, I fixed it. So you have a Mac, right? You're on a Mac? There's going to be
Yes.
fireworks. So they have a thing called reactions, and they don't tell you this. And I Googled this, and it took me forever. But they set it up so, like, on your Mac or your phone, if you do certain reactions, thumbs up gives you like 2 thumbs up gives you fireworks. One gives you like have you ever seen a thumb come up like a thumb? I was getting thumbs
all
down,
the time.
thumbs ups,
Big
fireworks.
blue bubble, fucking thumbs up.
Yes.
Woo,
I'm going to send you the tutorial. Hopefully it'll work for you. It's a fucking nightmare. And no one knows what it is because it happens on Zoom, but it's only on Macs because Apple decided to do this reaction thing, but they didn't tell anyone. So no one knows how to fix it. I think I have the fix.
It didn't happen until I bought, Jessica, remember I bought the new the Mac Studio? That's when it started. So it's yeah, okay.
And
So
what's
That makes
great,
sense.
and what's great is when we're in these like high meetings and it goes and then thumbs up pops up, instead of just like pretending none of us see it, Todd has to point it out every time. Like, I don't know where that thumb's coming from.
I have this thing where I just, there's no safety for my trigger sometimes to put it in a firearms reference. And like I was in a meeting with HBO and pitching a documentary this year, and I get to looking, and I'm wearing a T-shirt, and I did Zoom from my backyard bar, in there. And because the studio we were working with was like, that's where the story started. You got to be at the bar. So I'm in there, and I just noticed like my fucking collar on my shirt was all like someone had helped, grabbed it and was holding me there and just let go of it. And I was just like, first words out of my mouth, I just want to apologize to everybody right now for the collar of this shirt. I have mirrors in my house. There's no excuse for me to come out here in this raggedy ass collared shirt. And we spent the first 5 minutes on it. Like it's a weakness I have to point out the obvious.
Well, honestly, I think it's a strength because I'm sure that disarms them. And also, it's like they remember that meeting. This is the guy that was like talking about his shirt. Oh, the Vivster coming out with a $10 sticker. Thank you so much. Viv says, this is great. I love Jessica and Todd. Looking forward to their podcast every week. Thank you so much, Viv.
Nice. Thanks, Viv.
So go ahead, babe. I've asked the last question.
Well, I just want to delve into the investigators. Because we know now you're together, you're working on this project together. Tell us a little bit about the process of getting a show ready to go, because I listen every week and I am blown away because like it always is very thorough, the information that you give. And that is so awesome because a lot of times one episode cannot do a case justice. But I do feel like on some of your episodes, like I've gotten enough meat of the case because you've been so thorough. So tell us how it is to get ready for one of these episodes.
So first of all, let's see. Up until Calvin Berry, we had part 1 of his episode come out last week. So part 2 will be coming out tomorrow. So tune in. And if you haven't listened to 1, make sure you listen to 1 first.
So good.
But prior to that, we would get the family, we would get case files, we would request all the information that we could from law enforcement or family. And it was a matter of sifting through sometimes hundreds of pages of case files, creating an outline, making sure we're interviewing the family and the police if they want to be interviewed. That didn't always happen, but we have had a couple of occasions that we do get the police with an interview. And it is a very long process. And putting a whole episode together doesn't end with me. Then it would go to Todd. Then Todd creates his magic within it. Then we table read everything. So, it's a couple weeks long process until Calvin. So I want to give a huge shout out to someone who is in here watching this. Miss Dana Pohl is our new associate producer, and she has been helping tremendously with the research side of things, going through all those case files with us and for us and putting it into a timeline for me. And it's an invaluable part of the process. So I want to make sure that everyone knows how integral she is to the show now. It's great to be a 3-person team. But again, it's still a very, you call it thorough. And it's, Todd and I talked about this the other day. It's like, we don't know how to operate on anything any other way. Like, we're such thorough people to our own detriment sometimes when we're trying to like get these out weekly. But it's like, if we didn't do it that way, it wouldn't be something we would want to put out there. So it's, I'm glad that you recognize that and appreciate that, because we just don't know any other way to do it. And that's why Dana's so great on our team, because she's the same way. We're very detail oriented people. And so I don't know if that answered your question of the process, but yeah, I mean, we don't do a Google search and put together, a quick 30-minute show. It's we take a lot of pride and put a lot of our heart and soul into these stories, because it's the family and it's the victim stories, and we take that very seriously, even though we have some lighter moments.
Yeah, it would be so much freaking easier if we could just Google research and be done. Like, I listen to some podcasts and I envy the fact that they are able to be comfortable with that level of research, because you can, like, a weekly, like, if it takes you 2 weeks to make an episode and you're doing a weekly, the math defines, at some point your show's going to be done, because you can't keep up anymore. And that's why we had to beg and plead to get Dana, because if we would have continued that course, we just would have, we'd have to release an episode every 2 weeks in order just to keep an even kill instead of every week.
I just want to say something to Mandy Jo, which I love that she's like, Jessica runs for fun, so there's no room to fuck around. Yes. But I run to make sure I clear my mind to get my head straight to work on this kind of stuff. But also, she was like, I imagine they play Let's Go for the hype, and then Jessica shuts down 45% of Todd's jokes. I will say no. I will say I am like his hype girl, and then he tries to make me funnier too, because I've actually been told that I'm funny, even though I think I'm just snarky. But people have said I'm funny, but I think that's just because I'm next to Todd. That's what I've been said. That I've heard that oh, I didn't know Jessica was funny. It must be because she's next to Todd. And by the way, Todd told me that that's not possible. You can't be funny in proximity. So I will take the funny. I will
It's
take
very, very true. You can't make somebody funny. I would definitely, I'm behind that 1000%. And
but I don't.
No, she doesn't. And I have toned it down myself, just because I felt like for a minute I was trying to push that envelope too hard, and it was hurting my ears when I would listen back, and it just felt a little forced in a couple episodes. So I reached out to Jessica and I was like, hey, I'm going to pull it back a little bit, and it's kind of morphed into more of, okay, we don't need as many jokes. It's just, let's be organic with them. If there's a true opportunity to be lighter, let's do that. But now it's, sometimes just being light and fun in moments is funny. You don't have to have a perfectly crafted joke for it. Just to be lighter and be able to say, fuck this guy or whatever in the middle of it. That's a moment of levity. So I think I was just overthinking it for a minute. We had some success with Lori Lee Malloy right off the bat, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna be the first perfect hybrid of comedy and true crime," which I explained earlier how hard and impossible that is to do. So now I think we're really feeling it. Like we can be light appropriately in the right moments without having to worry about being jokey.
Yeah, because I think some of the lighter moments in maybe the last month's worth of episodes, if you will, have been parts where, we're going over a case file, something, and it's almost a moment of like, what the fuck what are we talking about here? And you don't even have to say that. You don't even have to say a joke. Like, it's that pause, or it's the moment of like, wait, did I just read that right?
Right.
And it's not like laugh out loud funny. It's like, what in the hell funny? And so I think we've gone away less from the crafting the funny into it, into like more of an organic thing. And I think that just comes with time anyway. You know, Todd and I have a good chemistry right off the bat, but it's still something that we have tried to, you know, do even better. And, you know, we'll be reading through and I'm like, no, let's do that again. I can say it better. We can come off that better. So I think I feel like, and Todd has said this, like we feel like at this point we've really hit our stride a little better. It's, you know, we had a few comments where people were feeling it was too scripted, and we didn't disagree. We were just trying to find our rhythm better so that it didn't feel so scripted. And so I think we've really figured that chunk of it out, and it's only going to keep growing and getting better. I mean, I you know, as much as I love you know, more and more I can't think of the word I'm trying to say. Getting the word out for some of those earlier cases as much as possible still, I really want people to listen to further out episodes, because those were so brand spanking new, hot off the press. Like, we knew what we were doing, but we really didn't know yet what we were capable of. And I feel like if you listen to the last couple, especially the 2 Calvin episodes, and you know, one of the things, you know, you were talking about up top, how we kind of shoot the shit for a little bit and bring you into the case that way. We've also purposefully tried to use that portion of each episode now to in some way relate it back to the case so that it's more of a seamless transition into it. And so we did that with Calvin, and you know, as you heard, it's a very personal you know, opening for me.
Yeah, that was a great note that Dana Pohl gave us, because she's right. Like, I think at the beginning it was fine, but you know, after a while, it's like, oh, they're talking about, you know, this trip to a baseball game and, you know, eating tacos or whatever, and it can at some level detract from what's the fun. Or you could lose a new listener who's like, what the fuck, man? I didn't log in here to listen to this guy talk about tacos for 5 minutes, you know, so they're out. So I think she gave us a perfect note of, you know, can we create that and kind of put it on theme with, in some fashion, what the story is, you know, about either the setting that it takes place or something that touches personally, like in which it wasn't funny at all. It was very heartfelt, but I thought it was a very genuine opening, and that it did the story a service by Jessica sharing what happened to her brother recently when we introduced the Calvin Berry story, because it was Calvin's sister who brought us the story, and that's fighting so hard for justice for him. So, you know, you just got to be open in this game, right? Like, you can't let ego get in the way of evolution and betterment. And I think sometimes people, like, you read through the comments, it can hurt you. It can make you cry. Sometimes people are brutally honest, or they're just outright mean, and you can discern the silly people from the real people. And she's right. We looked at him, we were like, boy, I really shot for the heart there. But you know what? I can't disagree. Those episodes they're referring to were a little rough for me too. So that's a good note, and we'll just fix it. And I think as long as you're doing anything and you're just open to feedback and constructive criticism, I mean, that's the key to success. Because if you're a hard worker, like, the rest will take care of itself. You have to somewhat. And I've heard plenty of people in podcasting say, "Oh, don't even read the comments." You know what? I get what you're saying, but also, if there's 400 comments saying the same thing, probably a little truth to what's being said. You know, so I think you have to pay attention a little bit.
Well, and it's a little easier, you know, because we're partners. So if one of us gets hawked off at a comment or, you know, a review, the other one can kind of like be the voice of reason, and I think we bounce off of each other pretty well with that. So it's not as hard for us to read the comments and talk it out. But when you're in it solo, it's a lot more challenging to read those kind of comments. But I think it's if you have, I don't know if I have a thick skin or not. I get my feelings hurt pretty easily when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I take anything I create very personally, because I do it with such heart. And so, but you have to look past your thin skin, I guess, because it's how you grow and become better, because you have to look at those comments as the constructive criticism that they are. And I haven't really disagreed with 90% of the comments that have come out. So, and those are such a small percentage. I mean, we have so many people that have great things to say, but I don't look at the things that are lower stars and maybe perceived as a negative review as that. I look at it as, oh yeah, that's probably something we need to work on. And we have. And so I'm waiting for those people to come back and leave a new review, because I feel like we've worked on it for them. So you're welcome.
That's what sucks. They can't go back and edit their review, or they would have to establish a new Apple ID and then leave a comment and say, hey, I used to be Johnny Shit Show 4000, and I left the 4th comment on there, and it was really bad, but I think you guys have gotten a lot better, so good, kudos for you. No one's going to do that. That's why I never comment negatively myself. I might reach out, try to DM somebody, maybe, if I think this is constructive for you, but I never do that, because early on, it's never near as good as it is 6 months down the road. So why leave a shitty review, that you can't undo? It's there forever.
Very true. Speaking of podcasters we love and who know this game very well, Bob Mata in the chat has signed up. So thank you so much, Bob. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining the new channel. Yeah, I think that I'm not talking to you, Siri. Shut up. I don't.
Did you say you're welcome?
Yeah, I was thanking Siri when I was thanking Bob. Yeah, I totally
Alexa
get what you guys...
and Siri talk to him too much for my taste.
Yeah, Shannon gets a little...
Hey,
Joe's
Joe's
a little flirty.
Joe Jackalone and Bob Mata.
Good morning, Jason. Just ask the weather.
I mean, we're only 2 years away from that. The AI is so advanced now, it's going to be creepy to the level, there is a certain personality that would be just fine never leaving their home and having a Siri, act as their wife or significant other. And it's we're real close to that.
Well, did you see that viral clip of the AI where it was called, this lawyer was in a hearing in front of Congress, and he got called by, it was this scam where it's AI using his son's voice, his adult son's voice, and it says, Dad, I'm in trouble, it's a whole thing, but I'm in trouble, I'm in jail, and then it sets it up, he's like, but you got to get me out, but you have to wire this money to this lawyer. The lawyer calls him up, an actual person calls him up and says, you got to wire it to me, but the AI is the AI is the son's voice calling him, saying he's in jail. And this guy is this super intelligent lawyer. He ends up wiring $4,000 because this attorney tells him he has to use it to get him out of. It's anyway. Bob's in here. If we start on AI, he's gonna.
It's good. It's going to be scary. Here's something too. Even before AI and all that technology, once we got really, just surveillance cameras became a real prevalent thing. An old buddy of mine brought this up once, and I can't believe no one ever did this, but with the level of when you watch Mission Impossible, the movie makeup and prosthetics are so great that, they literally can make me look like another person, and then you can just rip it off. It's all latex. Why has no one ever robbed a bank and just perfectly made a mask of just a regular other citizen? From a stock photo image that you can download on Google or something, and just make a mask of a completely different person and rob a bank that way without covering the I can't believe no one's ever tried that in the history of our nation.
Okay,
ever.
So I want to say something. I got, if anyone watches any of the live shows that Todd and I've done back to back, and I don't remember if it was one time when we were on with you guys or if it was publicly buzzed, but if we put all those together, Todd is laying out like the perfect handbook for
The poop
criminals.
murders were when we were on with you guys.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the other one. It's like,
Yes.
what are you doing, Todd? Are you trying to create true crime content by giving us a handbook of how to rob banks and commit murders with the poo phone? And
That's going to be Todd's Netflix special that finally comes out.
how to get away with murder, according to
Right?
Todd McComas.
Oh, that's a good. I'm gonna write that down. That's a decent concept.
He's joking.
But all right, so I mean that was really great advice because I was going to ask you guys what your key was because I know we have a lot of people who listen and watch who are upcoming podcasters or YouTubers and kind of just being honest and taking some criticism, but not all of it because, like you said, Todd, there's going to be some people who are just going to like you're just going to they want you to get a reaction from you. They're not even trying. They're not really giving feedback. They want you to react to them, and like you can't just. But there's some things where it's like, that makes like someone said to me the other day, like your back. We had a white background. They're like, it's hard to see. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I worked on that, but then, there's some people that are just trying to get a ride at you, and there's just you can't let that get to you.
Yeah, you got to discern those because there's some people that's like this is their passion in life is to shit on people online for whatever reason. Like they can't go to a restaurant without leaving a shitty Yelp review every time, or probably they don't even go to the restaurant. They're just on there just making shit up, But it's just you got to discern that right away. Once you do, whatever the stars are, you got to eat that. But as long as they intelligently give you real feedback, I think you have to digest it and poop it out the other end as something productive,
Speaking of upcoming podcasts,
you gotta bring the buttholes in, don't you?
I just had to. I had to one time. I had to.
Shay from
Mandy
the
Joe, you're welcome because she was the one that wanted butthole stories. There you go.
He was waiting for the butthole.
Thank you, Shay, from the True Compass podcast for the $2 super sticker. Thank you. Go ahead, babe. Do you have something?
Well, no. Yes. I know what I wanted to ask. I really want to ask this. I put this on the list selfishly. I want to know if there are any updates about Crystal Rogers' case that you can tell us, or if there are updates but you can't tell us.
I mean, there's been a couple of things I think in the last couple of weeks that are just minor kind of court and trial stuff that you can find that on simple Google searches. But and always and I said this in our 2 episodes, but if you want to follow day-to-day, weekly, in the minute breaking news on anything Crystal Rogers or anything Bardstown, follow Shay McAllister and WHAS because she was my partner on the Bardstown podcast and she is there all the time. But having said that, we do have updates that we can't talk about.
Oh boy.
Well, the little ones that are Googleable, right? They try to get the defense is trying to argue to get a different judge.
Well, they were trying to get the judge to recuse himself, and he wouldn't. And then I think they took it to maybe the Kentucky State or the Kentucky Supreme Court, and they were like, "Yeah, we're not going to make him do that." So they're just, I think they're just trying to do what defense does, and that's stall. So I know that the prosecution was looking for a summer trial, and the defense doesn't think that that'll be enough time. And I'm talking about the Brooks Houcks defense because there's 2 that are behind bars right now. So far. But so I think, we're looking at probably fall, winter before there's even an inkling of a trial, but we'll see. There's some stuff that I'm waiting to hear about with his brother, Nick. They had that like huge bombshell in the middle of his court appearance where they basically let it out that they are one little sample away to knowing whether or not they have the gun used to kill Tommy Ballard, because Nick tried to sell it to an undercover. So, there's all kinds of little things going on. I wouldn't call that a little thing. That happened, and we put it in the episode. But as far as like what's going on now, there was, he had a $10 million bond. So, of course, his attorney wanted to get that lowered, and that's not going to happen. So they had pulled all his records of property of he owns and everything to show that, $10 million is not as outrageous as it sounds to the everyday person. He certainly has the means. So those are, just some of the simpler updates that are going on right now, but we're waiting on some other things to happen. But when I say we have an update that we can't talk about, it's stuff to go.
Project related. Yeah.
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 Good.
What I can't wait for in that case is that Nick dude, the former cop, the brother of Brooks, who no doubt is deeply involved in this. That dude is going to at some point have an epic shootout with police. Like something's going to happen because they're going to move in and put the grabs on that dude. There's no way they're not. And I was telling Jessica, a dude like that at that level, and they've done all this stuff with the buying the gun and the ballistics testing, but they haven't arrested him yet, is kind of weird to me. But it makes me think like at all times they've assigned a whole surveillance unit from the U.S. Marshals that their entire job is to monitor his phone and to follow him everywhere he goes, because there's no way they're going to risk him disappearing into Mexico or something. You know what I mean? Like they flagged him at the borders, all this stuff. So I would love to be a fly on the wall and know every little like behind the scenes police thing that's going on with that case right now. I know they're waiting on some testing and all that stuff, but I just want to know like how many resources are devoted to that case right now, because federally it has to be a shit ton.
Well, it's funny you say that because go ahead, baby. We're going to say something.
I was just going to say, if you guys have not listened to these 2 episodes, 2 parts, but if you also like Saturday psych sessions, you will love these episodes because Todd really talks a lot about like the mentality around the interrogation of these 2 brothers. And the one brother is like the one we're talking about, Nick. He's super scary. It's like you wonder if there's a soul in there or not.
Yeah.
So if you like psychology, you will love listening to those interrogations and then listening to Todd tell you kind of like behind the scenes what the investigator is probably thinking and what he thinks.
Well,
So,
maybe not from what I've listened so far. It's maybe not what sounds like the investigator may not have been thinking these things, but Todd was thinking them. I haven't finished the episode yet, but it seemed like. Go ahead.
Those were tough to watch. Like when you see, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, not that I'm the Peyton Manning of detectives, but when you're a former player and you're trying to analyze a game and you just see like egregious mistakes, like why did he not read that coverage? Like it was so obvious to me. Like so many things are just glossed over, and I get it. Like game day detective, very different than game after detective, but man, that was a tough one, especially the polygraph operator. So when you guys listen to that, I kind of really rip into him a little bit, but he was horrible. He's horrible. Like he polygraphs are already controversial enough. He just did like the best commercial ever for them why they should never be used ever. So that part's tough, but yeah, that guy, Nick, like not seeing him face to face, but having the benefit of that video, that guy is so hollow inside. Like when he swallows a bite of a sandwich, like it's like when you drop a dime down a dry well and you just wait and then finally kink when it hits the bottom. That's how empty that dude is inside. Jessica's been looking in this way farther than and she warned me about it, but I saw this guy and I'm like, evil, that's evil right there. Pure, unadulterated evil.
So I've been covering the Bardstown cases for a decade now, just to give some background to people who may have not have listened to this, and then the Bardstown podcast. So when I did the Bardstown podcast with Shay, I watched all these videos. So when all the Crystal Rogers news is breaking, I was like, Todd, I want you, because we'd actually analyzed body cam footage together in New Orleans for the undetermined case. And so I knew what he was like when he analyzed these kind of videos, but I know what's in these videos. And I'm like, oh, I want you to analyze these. And I had already thought of like some of the crazier things that were happening in some of these videos. And his perspective into what I was thinking was completely opposite, and it was amazing. And I was like, my mind was blown, and I'm like, this is so good. And that's why they're so long too, because I couldn't trim anything out of Todd because it was just too good to have his perspective into something that I've been looking at for so long was incredible. So I found it really amazing. So I knew that the listeners would as well. And yeah, so
it's tough to like, and it's not magic, right? It's just like anybody that does something at a certain level for long enough, it's like just so ingrained within you. Like I'm sure Bob watches court stuff all the time and just starts screaming, at the defense attorney, why are you not objecting? Why are you not, like it becomes so natural to him because he's done it so long and was good at it. It's tough to watch that stuff. But the stakes are so high, right? That's what pisses you off. It's like this thing, like you have them in the room. She's missing. And they had them in there pretty soon after she went missing. And it's like if you just would have done things just the right way, it could have totally changed the next several years of this investigation.
Now, what I found really interesting, aside from Todd's incredible analysis of all this, was also going back and watching these now, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, there's breadcrumbs. Like I can see the case starting to be pieced together even back then as well, however you think that they were doing in those interviews and polygraph examinations, whatever. But I can start to see where they were planting things. And so now fast forward, several years later into this investigation, I've never for one second doubted that this case was being worked on and that they were going to piece the puzzle together. Not only this case, but I think 2 others. And it's starting to slowly come to fruition and it's amazing. And so it's one of those things where I gotta say, 2023, I called Todd one day and I was like, my God, 2023 is literally the year of solved cases from cases I've covered because not only this one, but as we've talked before, the Debbie Lynn Randall case. And then just before Thanksgiving, I was doing an update episode for Dateline Missing in America. And surprise, surprise, the husband got arrested. So it has really been the year of cold cases getting solved. And I just want that. For as exciting it is for me because I've covered these cases, how exciting is that for the families because they've waited so long? And I just want that to be a message for anyone who's listening who may have a case or a family member or anyone where it's a cold case and you're starting to lose hope. Don't. This has been the year. My goodness. I mean, Tupac is going to get solved. I mean, all these cases, it's been the year of solved cases. So I just want everyone to take that away from 2023 and look at it as have some hope that your case, whatever your case is, has a chance and will get solved one day. And it could be
true crime away for my grandkids because there will be no unsolved cases anymore. Like that's such a big part of this genre. And once those are gone, like one day there will be no more unsolved cases. Look
at Debbie Lynn Randall. That was 1970s and it got solved this year. So keep the hope.
Yeah.
By the way, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we have in the description, investigatorspodcast.com. Make sure you go in there. We have Todd and Jessica's Twitter. Make sure you go in there, giving 5 stars to the podcast like we always say. Go ahead, Todd. You're going to say something. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say something to all the husbands out there. Like, divorce is real easy to get right now. Like, quit fucking murdering your wives. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to get a divorce nowadays.
Or
And
ex-husbands. Have you guys seen? It's talking about old cases with people trying to flee. Have you guys paid attention to the Adelson case that just?
no.
Oh God! So this is a case from it's a conspiracy case, 2014, that just how long ago, babe? A few weeks ago. So an ex-wife hires two hitmen to kill her ex-husband, and the hitmen were convicted back in 2018, 2022. But this year, the ex-wife's brother just got convicted, and the mother tried to flee, bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam, the mother and the father, and she just got arrested. So
She's on the jet bridge.
She's on the jet bridge, and the FBI gets her. And they've been the whole case is them wiretapping her. After the son gets convicted, he is on the phone for like 35 hours separately to the mother to the son who's now in jail convicted, and she decides she's going to buy a one-way ticket to Vietnam. They get her on the jetway. She's arrested now, and now the son's sentencing will be the same day as the mother's indictment, December 12th. So if you guys want a case to look into, talk about old case, and this is from 2014, and it's all coming. And now the key is the actual ex-wife that we're really hoping is the next one to go down.
There is nothing better than wiretaps. Here's a quick example of a case right up your alley, Jay, because it started with an insurance fraud. But there was a famous case here for a while in Indianapolis where these people, their house blew up, and it took out half a neighborhood, killed I forget how many people. I mean, just took out several homes in this neighborhood, like a huge gas explosion. Well, there was talk early on, because the family was away, that the homeowners, the husband and wife, were, doing something they shouldn't have. And later they get some information, the FBI does, that there was some property found in a storage unit. Someone tipped them off to a storage unit that had some property in it. And that property in there, a lot of the items were listed as having been destroyed in the house explosion, and they had claimed insurance money for compensation for those items. So it was enough to get them a wiretap, right? So they called our unit, and we pulled this trick where we had a team following them, and they were driving down the road, and we had a trooper stop them and then tell them that they were wanted for questioning, talk them into getting in his car, going to the station to be interviewed. While they did that, our team swoops in and bugs the car through the vents, put these little microphones everywhere.
Wow.
And it's a cellular device that's transmitting the audio to our system. So we're setting into, and it was a state wiretap. So we were running it as a state police, but we were using the FBI's room, a cool ass room they had, by the way. So we're in there, and it's right next to the Costco, so you can go over there and get pizza on your break, whatever. It's awesome. But they were in there wiretapping, waiting for them. So they talked to them each individually and then dropped them off together at their car. And they drive all the way home. And of course, they want to compare notes on what each was asked and how each answered. And it just broke the case wide open.
Wow.
They end up getting indicted for all those deaths. Like, I forget what charge what stuck them, but I think it was felony murder, because they killed all these people while the commission of a felony. So, yeah, they blew up their own damn house, and it was just they didn't know what they were doing, and it didn't just blow up their house; it blew up the whole fucking neighborhood.
Wow.
But wiretaps are so, because you're just like, oh, I'm just like invisible, and I'm in the room with you, and I'm hearing everything you're saying. It's like the next best thing.
Well, that trial that we watched, a ton of it was them. Like all these calls and just listen, and they have codes where, like, one of the codes was basically that they were going to have their TV repaired, which was they were going to have him murdered. Like, literally. And the mom, she's a grandma. She's got the guy who was murdered. His name is Dan Markel. She's pushing the kids on the swings. You can hear the swings as she's talking to her son about how they're going to cover up the murder. I mean, wiretaps are wild. But I can't believe it's already 8:00. This is
no.
we got to get Jessica.
I mean, I'm recording it so I can just fast forward through some commercials. Trust me, I'm not gonna miss very much tonight. I hate to say it, but it's fine. It's fine.
Third string
Fine.
quarterback.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, we could
You
talk
know
to you
what?
guys.
And they may have better luck if I miss the first 15 minutes or something. So
True.
okay.
That always happens to me. When I don't watch my Colts, they win.
Mhm.
Well, but
We
can
have-
you guys go ahead? Go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, nothing. I was just gonna say we play the Colts here soon, so that'll be fun.
Ooh. Can you guys talk about any upcoming stuff you have? I
Shut
know
up, Bob. Sorry.
Bob says Bengals are done. Bengals
Shut
are
up,
done.
Bob. What are the
Jeez,
Bears
Bob.
doing? What are the Bears
Bengals
doing?
are done. That's true. Yeah.
Oh,
The
Bears.
poor Bears. Poor Bears, man.
Shut up.
But promising maybe next year. Looks like they might be seated pretty well in the draft. We'll see.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good draft because we have a sucky end of the season.
No, the
but-
Bears, because they're going to have probably the first 2 picks if it works out right. But yeah, so we have some projects coming out, and we've been having discussions and stuff on some really cool stuff for 2024. And I always feel like a dickhead when I say I'm not allowed to talk about them. But one of the things we did sign a contract for, and in there is like we can't until a certain date. The fuck was that? It sounded like my printer was about to explode. But
It's a ghost.
it's like they're fucking listening. See if I violate the
It's a
NDA.
wiretap, man.
Yeah. So we can't say what it is, but there's a show that we're going to be involved with coming up, and then we have some long form projects in the hopper, and just waiting for approval for those to see how those are going to work out or not. So, yeah.
But I do want to discuss an episode of The Investigators that we have coming up in December. We can call it a nice holiday or Christmas gift, if you like, to our listeners. We're going to have our next Across the Table, and this one is with Josh Mankiewicz.
Nice.
Nice.
So I get to have both of my partners in crime in one place, and we have a good old chat. And I don't know if everyone knows how funny Josh is, but he's really funny.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's gonna be awesome.
And if Bob is listening, Bob, we recorded an Across the Table with Bob, and I don't know what happened, Bob, but I've gotten a new computer since. Somehow the audio was no good from the whole goddamn thing. So if you think it's just Bob's probably always listening, like, goddamn, when's mine coming out?
It was an operator error.
It was definitely an operator error. Somehow the whole audio file was corrupt, and pretty pissed about it. But I think we've resolved it since, so we'll have to talk to Bob again. But yeah, Josh Mankiewicz, is that who you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. I said Josh Mankiewicz.
I just talked so long. I was like, God damn, did she say the name? And I just spoil the surprise. You know what I mean? That dude is hilarious.
He never listens to me.
It's like, we become so close. It's like my wife would be like, should all of a sudden she'd be like, so what do you think? And I haven't heard a goddamn thing. She's been talking for 5 minutes, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to say that all over again.
When we're on the phone, I can hear him. If I hear him typing, like I can hear him typing on his phone, like a text or an email, or if I hear him typing on his computer, I just stop talking for a minute, because I know for the next 10 to 15 minutes, he's not going to hear a word coming out of my mouth, because he won't. And then when he's done, he'll be like, what'd you say? And so I just stop and I'm like, I'll give you a minute. And then when he's done typing and hits send, then I'm like, okay, so what I was saying was, I don't have to be in the same room with him to know this.
You can't empathize with that, can you, Shannon? That doesn't sound like anything I would do.
I just I'll be taught. He has a glazed over look. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wait until he's back in the present moment.
That's false, because you trap me. You keep talking. You see the look.
Sometimes
you know I'm not
you.
listening. And then you're like, right? And I'm like, I don't know what you just said for the last 10 minutes.
That's
I was
true.
doing
Sometimes
something.
I'm in the mood to trap you.
Yeah, thank you.
This is how bad I get sometimes. We were getting ready to kick a door, and we were in this projects, and we're just kind of lined up, and we're all just sitting there waiting in the hallway with our backs against the wall. And my sergeant is telling us something probably pretty important because we have our guns out. And he gets done, and I realize like halfway into what he's saying that I've been focused on this fire extinguisher the whole time because it caught my eye. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, do I know how to use a fire extinguisher? Because I've never used one ever in my life. So I'm looking at it, trying to figure out, well, you pull a pin, and then I'm like, halfway through what he's saying, I realize, I have not heard a single word. And so I'm like, Mitch, I am you're going to have to say that all over again. Like that's how bad I get.
In all fairness, like if I zone out for a second, because I do the same thing as him, but if I do, at least I have the courtesy to be like, I'm sorry, can you repeat that whole last part again? And I do that all the time to him. Like, I'm sorry, I need to hear that again because I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Because we're like constantly multitasking, but we're on the phone together like a majority of the day. So yeah, but all you got to do is say, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that. Don't pretend like you heard it and then just move on.
I know. I have a bad habit of doing that too. And then they're like, what'd I just say? And you're like, fuck. All right, I wasn't listening.
I use that line on my husband. What did I just say? And he's gotten 20 years together. He finally knows he needs to know and repeat it. But I have not pulled that on you, Todd. I don't pull that on you. Because it's like, if you didn't hear me, then oh well, you won't know what I'm talking about. Joe
G says, I sometimes just say a word hoping it's the right answer. You imagine, you're just like, so what do you think? And you're just like,
green.
Blue?
By the way, I don't know if you saw, Bob can actually empathize with you guys because Bob had a live last week, where Bob was talking to his guests for approximately 45 minutes. He had about, 800 people in the chat, a ton of people, and Bob did not hit the live button. So Bob can probably empathize with you guys. So he had to restart the live and then do it all over. So Bob,
that sucks.
Can probably empathize with you on that.
Yeah, we were early on in there, and I fucked something up. Sorry, Bob.
So let me ask you this. Let me leave it at this because we want to get to the game. What is the best way we can support the investigators? We always say give 5 stars. We try to retweet all we can retweet. Anything. What for you guys? What's the best thing for you to get it out? Tell a friend. How can we help the investigators? What can we do?
I think one of the biggest things, whether it's the investigator, this is for Todd and I, whether it's the investigators or some of these other things that we're talking about that we can't talk about in the future. But Todd and I, no matter what we are going to work on in the coming year, we have decided, and we've been this way now for almost 3 years. I don't know if you've realized it's that long, Todd, but we're partners in this. So if you hear Jessica Noll, you're going to hear Todd McComas. Now we're going to have our own projects here and there. One day I'll bring him on Dateline. I don't know when, but it'll happen because Josh likes him. But I think the more that people, I don't like to put out there all the stuff that I'm working on. Todd does that for me, which is very nice of him, but I don't like to brag. But I think the more and more you see Todd and Jessica together, help promote that, because if you see Todd and Jessica attached to something, it's got 1,000% of both of us in it and us working together, and we're going to make whatever that project is about the case and the victim and the family number one priority. And so whether it's the investigators or some of these other things for 2024, just keep in mind that Jessica and Todd are a duo and we are the investigators, whether or not it's on the investigators. So keep that in mind and just help push our content out there, because the content it's their content and we want them to have voices. So if you see our names on it, you know that you can trust it and you might like it.
You will like it. You will like it. And by the
I'm
way,
sorry, I wasn't listening. I missed that whole
Shut up,
thing.
Todd. Blue.
by the way,
What did
They're
I
a
say,
du-
Todd? What did I say?
they're a duo, but not married for folks who see them in public. Duo,
Yes.
not
Yes.
married, because we know we've run into that problem, right?
Right. Work marriage. It's a work marriage. So yeah, I agree. Like we're going to be doing a lot together. We just made our minds up. Hey, let's just keep working together. You know, whatever we end up into. So follow us individually, I guess, and you know, we'll hopefully everybody knows that we're always about other people too. So we just love hanging out and making new friends and growing this village. So you know, just say hi, get involved, I guess.
And it's all on that website, guys, the Investigators Podcast. So it's in the link. We've been sharing it. Check it out. Babe, any final words?
No, Jessica said the best word about you guys, which is chemistry. You guys have the greatest chemistry. So if you start to see a project with Todd and Jessica, you know that you're going to like it because they both are, you know, putting their whole heart into it and having a good time. And you'll have a good time listening to it. You'll even have a good time like crime solving.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's the fun part.
Get your notebooks, become
Yep.
investigators, listen to the podcast, like, share, subscribe, 5 stars, the whole deal. Guys, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We appreciate you guys so much for coming on. And that's it. Have a good night, everybody.